Imagine waking up at 3 a.m. It's pitch black outside. The wind is howling, which is normal for an Icelandic winter, but the sound cutting through the wind isn't. It's a siren. Not a fire truck. Not a police car. But a civil defense siren screaming across the entire town. You grab your phone. The message is simple and terrifying. Evacuate immediately. The eruption has started. You have 5 minutes to grab your kids, your pets, and maybe a photo album. And leave the house you spent 20 years paying for. You step outside, look towards the edge of town, and the sky isn't black anymore. It's a pulsating, angry red. The ground beneath your feet is vibrating. This isn't a movie script. This was the reality for the residents of Grindavik just recently. But the terrifying part isn't the lava itself. It's what that lava represents. For 800 years, this peninsula was dark, silent, dead. Now, the lights have turned back on, and geologists are realizing this isn't just a single event. It is the opening shot of a geological war that could last for centuries. The nightmare didn't just wake up. It's getting out of bed and coming for the door. To understand why everyone is panicking, you have to look at the timeline. Humans live in years and decades. Geology lives in epochs. The Reykjanes Peninsula, where the capital and the international airport sit, follows a cycle. A violent, precise cycle. It sleeps for roughly 800 to 1,000 years. During that sleep, you can build towns, you can build power plants, you can pretend the ground is solid. But then, it wakes up. The last time these fires burned, the Vikings were still establishing their settlements. We are talking about the years 1210 to 1240. That era was called the Reykjanes fires. And once they started, they didn't stop for 3 decades. Now, do the math. 1,240 plus 800 years creates a window right around now. We fooled ourselves into thinking Iceland was stable because, in our short lifetimes, it was. But the Earth has a long memory. The pressure has been building up deep in the crust. Magma accumulating in sills and dikes for centuries, just waiting for the rock to give way. And in 2021, at Fagradalsfjall, the seal finally broke. Let's talk about Grindavik. This isn't just a dot on a map. It was a thriving fishing community. It was home to nearly 4,000 people, people who worked the trawlers, people who ran the cafes. When the ground started shaking in late 2023, it wasn't a gentle rattle. It was thousands of quakes a day. The infrastructure simply snapped. Water mains burst. Power lines sparked and fell. Then the cracks appeared. These weren't potholes. These were chasms opening up in the middle of living rooms, tearing foundations in half like wet paper. When the magma finally breached the surface in January 2024, it didn't happen up in the mountains. It happened right at the town's edge. We watched on live streams as glowing walls of rock bulldozed into houses. Watching a house burn is one thing. Watching it be crushed and melted simultaneously is something else entirely. It feels personal. It feels like the planet is evicting us. And the tragedy is, even if the lava stops today, the town is likely gone. The ground under it is now a honeycomb of unstable tunnels. Why is this happening specifically here? Iceland is a geological freak. It sits on top of 2 major tectonic forces simultaneously. First, you have the spreading of the plates. The North American plate is moving west. The Eurasian plate is moving east. They are ripping the island in half at a rate of about 2 centimeters a year. Usually, this just creates a gap that fills with water or sediment. But under Iceland, there is a second monster, a mantle plume. Think of it as a blowtorch held against the bottom of the Earth's crust. This hotspot pumps massive amounts of molten rock upwards. So you have the crust tearing open, and a pressurized fountain of magma waiting right underneath to fill the gap. It is the worst possible combination. In other parts of the world, volcanoes are mountain singular peaks like Fuji or Rainier. Here, the volcano isn't a mountain. It's a fissure system. It's a long crack in the earth that can open up anywhere along a 10-mile line. You can't just avoid the peak. The danger zone is the entire ground beneath your feet. If you think I'm being dramatic about the potential scale of this, we need to look at history. Specifically, the year 1783, the eruption of Laki. This is the event that haunts every Icelandic geologist. It wasn't a quick bang. It lasted for 8 months. The sheer volume of lava released could have covered the entire island of Manhattan in rock deep enough to bury the Empire State Building. But the lava wasn't the killer. The killer was the gas. Laki pumped out 120 million tons of sulfur dioxide. It created a permanent sulfuric fog over the island. The grass withered and died. The livestock, sheep, cows, horses, ate the contaminated grass, and their bones grew soft. They developed grotesque deformities and died in agony. Then the people started dying. Not from fire, but from starvation and fluoride poisoning. A quarter of the population of Iceland perished. 25%. Gone. It was called the Mist Hardships. And it didn't stop at the borders. The Laki eruption broke the world. That poisonous haze drifted southeast. It reached the United Kingdom, where it caused thousands of excess deaths from respiratory failure. It reached France. It blocked out the sun across the northern hemisphere. Temperatures plummeted. Crops failed in Europe for years. There is a strong historical argument that the famine caused by the Laki eruption was one of the final triggers for the French Revolution. People were starving. The price of bread skyrocketed, and the monarchy fell. All because of a crack in the ground in Iceland. Even in America, Benjamin Franklin wrote about a dry fog that wouldn't dissipate. He noticed the sun looked like a blood-red disk. That is the power we are dealing with. We aren't just talking about a disrupted vacation or a canceled flight. We are talking about an event capable of altering the global climate and toppling governments if it hits that same magnitude again. Here is the crucial distinction that the news often misses. They report on an eruption, singular. They ask, when will it be over? The answer is probably not in our lifetime. When the Reykjane systems activate, they enter an era known as the fires. These aren't one-and-done events. They are pulses. Magma flows for a few weeks, stops for a few months to recharge, and flows again. This repeats for decades, sometimes centuries. Imagine living in a city where you know that every 6 months, a lava flow might spawn in your backyard. You can't plan for that. You can't insure against that. It creates a state of permanent emergency. The geological clock has struck midnight, and we are only in the first few minutes of the new day. The fires that started in 2021 are likely just the prologue to a volume of lava that will completely reshape the peninsula. There is no greater symbol of this crisis than the Blue Lagoon. It's Iceland's most famous tourist attraction. Beautiful, milky blue water, luxury hotels, moss-covered rocks. It looks like paradise. But right now, it looks like a fortress. They have had to construct massive earthen berms walls of dirt and rock 3 stories high to try and divert lava flows away from the resort. It is a surreal sight. You have tourists trying to relax in the spa, while heavy machinery creates a castle wall against nature just a few hundred yards away. And sitting right next to the Blue Lagoon is something far more important, the Svartsengi power plant. This plant supplies hot water and electricity to the entire peninsula, including the airport. If the lava overruns Svartsengi, 30,000 people lose their heat in the middle of the Arctic winter. That isn't an inconvenience. That is a humanitarian disaster waiting to happen. So, what do you do when a volcano targets your critical infrastructure? You fight back. Iceland is currently conducting one of the most ambitious geoengineering experiments in history. They are trying to dictate where the lava goes. We are used to seeing seawalls stopping water, but stopping lava is different. Lava is heavy. It's viscous, and it builds its own terrain. If you build a wall, the lava just piles up against it until it flows over the top. So you have to delay it. You have to guide it into valleys. The workers operating those bulldozers are the true heroes here. They are driving on top of active fissure zones, pushing dirt into the path of molten rock that is over 1,000 degrees Celsius. They are risking their lives to buy the power plant just a few more hours, a few more days. It works. To an extent. They saved the plant in the last flow. But nature is persistent. If the fissure opens up on the wrong time side of the wall next time, there is nothing they can do. While the cameras focus on the glowing red rivers, the locals are watching the wind direction apps on their phones. Sulfur dioxide, SO2, is the invisible threat. When these fissures open, they vent massive amounts of gas. It smells like burning matches, but sharper. It stings your eyes. It tightens your chest. On days when the wind blows towards the capital, Reykjavik, the air quality plummets. Authorities tell people to close their windows and turn up the heat to stay inside. For people with asthma or heart conditions, this is life-threatening. And remember, this is a small eruption compared to historical standards. If we get a larger, Laki-style event, the gas won't just be an annoyance. It will be a crisis. It could ground flights not because of ash, but because the acid in the air eats through turbine engines. We are constantly breathing the exhaust of the Earth, and we don't know the long-term health effects of doing that for 10 or 20 years straight. Iceland's economy stands on 3 legs: fishing, aluminum smelting, and tourism. This eruption is kicking tourism has been the golden goose since 2010, but who wants to book a vacation to a place that might be evacuated? Who wants to land at an airport that sits directly on top of the danger zone? Cancellations are already rolling in. Then there is the fishing. Grindavik was a hub. The processing plants there are closed. The harbor is threatened. That is millions of dollars in exports vanishing overnight. And the cost of defense. Building the walls, paying the emergency teams, housing the refugees from Grindavik, it is bleeding the Treasury dry. The government has had to implement a special lava tax on the rest of the country to pay for the damages. They are essentially engaged in a war of attrition with the ground. And wars are expensive. If this drags on for a decade, can the Icelandic economy survive the constant uncertainty? You might be thinking, I don't live in Iceland, so this is sad, but it doesn't affect me. Wrong. Remember 2010, Eyjafjallajökull. That volcano with the impossible name paralyzed the entire planet. It shut down European airspace for a week. 10 million travelers stranded. Billions of dollars lost. That happened because the eruption happened under a glacier. The lava hit the ice, exploded into fine ash, and the jet stream carried it over Europe. The current eruptions in Reykjanes are effusive, mostly lava flows, not explosive ash. So far, we have been lucky. But here is the catch. If the activity moves just a little bit, or if a fissure opens under the ocean nearby, the water interaction becomes explosive. We go from lava flows to ash clouds instantly. The flight paths over the North Atlantic are the busiest in the world. If that corridor closes, global logistics freeze. The supply chain, already fragile, snaps again. We are one bad wind direction away from global chaos. What does adaptation look like when the ground is the enemy? Icelanders are tough. They have survived on a rock in the middle of the freezing ocean for 1,000 years. But this is testing even their limits. We are seeing a shift in psychology. People are starting to ask if it's worth it. Real estate values in the Southwest are shaky. Insurance companies are terrified. We might see a future where large parts of the Reykjanes Peninsula are declared no-go zones, abandoned to nature. We might see the airport having to relocate, which would be a logistical nightmare of epic proportions. The new normal in Iceland means keeping a go bag packed by the door every single night. It means checking earthquake apps before you make coffee. It means accepting that the landscape you grew up with might be buried under black rock by next Tuesday. It is a state of hypervigilance that wears down the soul. The only silver lining here is the science. Iceland has become the world's greatest laboratory for volcanology. We are learning things about magma plumbing systems that we never knew before. Scientists are using fiber optic cables buried in the ground to listen to the Earth. They can hear the magma moving before it breaks the surface. They can predict eruptions with a 2-4 hour warning now. That is incredible. It saves lives. But it also highlights our helplessness. We can predict the hurricane, but we can't stop the wind. We can predict the eruption, but we can't cork the volcano. The scientists are exhausted. They are running on adrenaline and coffee, constantly analyzing data, knowing that if they miss a signal, people die. It is a high-stakes game of poker against a geological giant that doesn't bluff. There is a strange, terrifying beauty to all of this. When you stand near the flow, if you are safe, it is mesmerizing. The heat hits your face like a physical wall. The sound is like breaking glass and rushing water combined. It reminds us of a fundamental truth we often forget in our air-conditioned cities. We are guests here. We think we own the land. We draw property lines. We sign deeds. We build fences. But the earth is dynamic. It is alive. It recycles itself. Iceland is literally growing. The island is getting bigger as we speak. Creation is a violent process. We are witnessing the raw power that built the continents billions of years ago. It's awe-inspiring, but it's indifferent to us. It doesn't care about the power plant or the history of Grindavik. It just is. So, what happens next? We wait. The magma is still accumulating deep below. The GPS monitors are showing the ground rising again, inflating like a balloon. The next eruption isn't a matter of if, but when. It could be next week. It could be next month. The 400-year nightmare, or the 800-year cycle, whatever you want to call it, has only just begun to stir. The people of Iceland are standing on the front lines of a battle between human resilience and planetary force. They are holding the line for now. But as the fires continue to burn, the question echoes louder and louder. How long can you live on top of a ticking bomb before the bomb wins? Thanks for watching. If you want to support the channel, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments, would you live in a town protected by a wall of dirt against a volcano? I'll see you in the next one.